Good afternoon and welcome to the NABERS Schools launch webinar. My name is Andrew Buchel and I'm a sector lead at NABERS with a focus on outreach and engagement to the non-government school sector. And today I'll be facilitating this webinar. Before we begin, just a quick note on housekeeping. For those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, you'll see a couple of buttons at the bottom of your screen. They're pretty self-explanatory, but I just wanted to highlight the Q&A button. Clicking this will open a window for you to ask a question and like the questions of others. We'll have a couple of Q&A sessions today, and we'll be prioritizing the most popular questions. So if you read one that you think we should be answering, please like it. Taking a quick look at the agenda for today, you can see we have quite a bit in store for you. Firstly, we'll have a welcome from the Acting Director of NABERS. We'll then have a presentation and Q&A about the rating tools from our Acting Head of Market Development. And then we'll end with a panel session where you'll get to hear from one of the first schools to get NABERS rated, the NABERS Assessor who worked on that rating, and from one of the peak bodies that was involved in the development of the tools. But firstly, I'd like to take a moment to reflect that by the very nature of an online webinar, we have people dialing in from metropolitan, regional, and remote areas in every state and territory in Australia. As such, we're holding this meeting on a multitude of traditional Aboriginal lands, and on behalf of NABERS, the speakers today, and all attendees, I wish to acknowledge and pay respects to the traditional custodians, past and present, of all these lands, and acknowledge any Aboriginal people joining us today. I'm dialing in from the Illawarra region on the south coast of New South Wales. I would like to specifically pay my respects to the Dharawal people, the traditional custodians of the lands where I live and work. And now, without further ado, I'll hand you over to the Acting Director of NABERS, Monique Alfris.
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Monique Alfris. I'm current Acting Director of NABERS, and I'm just really excited to be here with you all today to launch this fantastic tool. We're all here today because there was, a group of very invested, interested stakeholders that asked NABERS to expand to this important sector, and we're going to go through that in a bit more detail, but it's just really exciting to be able to be here to thank all of you that have participated and now be at the end of that particular journey and the start of the journey of seeing schools across Australia being able to undertake NABERS ratings and receive the benefit that so many of the other sectors that participate in NABERS already have been able to see. So if we go to the next slide, NABERS is a NABERS building sustainability program, and we're overseen by a national steering committee that is represented. We have representatives from governments across Australia, so both our states and territories and our Commonwealth government. We also have quite a number of invested industry stakeholders as well that participate in that process. So it really is a tool of the people. We bring both government and industry together to help us with driving the direction of the program. We've been around for 25 years, and at the moment we're one of the largest building sustainability programs in Australia. So we're based on this simple star rating measure to help communicate environmental performance. If you're at 6 stars, then you're really leading the market. And if you're down at 1 stars, that's good news too, because you've got a lot of opportunity for improvement and some real low-hanging fruit compared to your peers to be able to reduce those energy and water bills and improve your environmental performance. We're available across a range of building sectors, so offices, public hospitals, shopping centres and apartment buildings, amongst others. And the expansion of this tool was actually a national commitment under the 2019 trajectory for low energy buildings. It's been supported by all the government jurisdictions across Australia and is being funded by the Commonwealth government. So why is it that NABERS has been expanded to all of these sectors? Well, if you go to the next slide, you can see the impact that we've had over time. So as buildings participate in NABERS and continue to rate over a period of time, we see a significant drop in their energy consumption and therefore their emissions. And it's the same across the other sectors that we rate as well. So this chart's showing you our offices sector, which we've been in for the longest period of time, and buildings that have participated in our program and rated year on year, 1 year after the other, over 10 years, are seeing a 33% reduction in their energy use. And for those that have been participating with us for 12 years, they're seeing a 42% reduction. Now, it's not just offices. We've also seen this in the other sectors that we participate in too. Shopping centres is another one that has been with us for quite some time. Offices is mandatory, but shopping centres is interesting because it's actually voluntary, and we do have quite a number of our shopping centres across Australia that participate. And you can see that they've actually been moving faster than offices, and that's because they've been able to take up a lot of the learnings that our offices sector has started with. So if we go to the next slide, today we're ready to announce the launch of the tool, which we're really excited about. The part of the reason that schools were interested in this tool was because of the many benefits of undertaking ratings that go beyond the emission savings, but these benefits lead to those emission savings. So the first one is that you can meaningfully compare between buildings. So you get a particular star rating and you can see how your school is comparing to other schools that are similar to yours. If you just look at your electricity bills, you might see a number on there, but you don't necessarily know what that number means. It might say 1,000 kilowatt hours. What we do is take that number and put it into our rating calculation and then show you what that 1,000 kilowatt hours might mean in comparison to other buildings that are similar to yours. This means that you can use it to set targets for annual improvements, but also understand that if you're in a portfolio of schools, which ones are performing better than others. So you might use it to sort of allocate funds to a particular school versus others. And we have rated public hospitals across Australia through a portfolio rating system. And that's what we've seen public hospitals doing, is looking across their portfolios and seeing which assets are best placed in terms of the capital investments to improve them. Then once you've done that, so you've invested the money and the building has improved over time, you can track to make sure that it is actually improving. So those investments that you made are sort of realizing a return. And then you can report on that and show, well, you know, this building was a 1-star building and we've taken it up to a 3-star building, you know, or a 3-star building to a 6-star building, in a way that's easy to communicate. You know, you're not talking about just a reduction in an energy bill of numbers which might not necessarily make sense to people. It may even be that your electricity consumption goes up because you've got more students at the school and so on. But the star rating takes all of that into account so that you can see you know, how it is that you're still comparing to schools that are similar to yours. And then finally, recognition. So if you are a very high performing school, or you've seen a big improvement in your environmental performance over time, you can easily communicate that to others. So if we go to the next slide. Just wanted to say just wanted to finish my sort of very short remarks here, just with a really big thank you to all of those that have participated in the development of this tool. We invited representatives from all the state education departments in the independent school sector to join a working group of experts to guide the development of the tool. It started development in late 2022, and we ran many working groups and panels throughout the development, and today we are only launching the tool because of all of your help and support. So just a really big thank you to all of you. And we really look forward to working closely together going forward to make our schools healthy and sustainable places for our students and staff to learn, work and play. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Mon. Next up, we have a presentation from Acting Head of Market Development, Suruchi Pathak. At the end of the presentation, we'll have time for questions, so please send through any questions you may have using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Over to you, Suruchi.
Thank you, Andy, and thanks, Mon. My name is Suruchi, and I'm presently in the role of Head of Market Development, and I have been expansion lead at NABERS for last more than 4 years, and I have been so grateful to have led this exciting expansion project of developing the NABERS tool for schools from A to Z, as these are very important buildings for our future generations. Can I have my next slide, please? So today, as we launch this tool, it's a perfect time to just reflect and see where we started and how we got to where we are now. To start, in September 2022, that was the very first step of collecting data for energy and water benchmark. So our data collection takes the biggest piece where we want to collect the diverse data so as to develop a benchmark which can cater to all types of schools. So, and interestingly, in fact, we were able to collect data from most of the schools in Australia. That's about nearly 7,195, so more than 7,000 schools, which is a great number, as you can see. So having this robust set of data, we moved on to analyzing this data and running a regression analysis. So as Mon said, we want to make a benchmark which gives you a fair comparison. So if you're a school of that size, you are actually compared to a similar size of school. Or if your school sits in a climate which is hot, you will be compared to a similar sort of a climate which is hot. So determining the key parameters or metrics that impact energy and water. So whether it be area, whether it be students, the number of students or the full-time staff or the climate, all of these parameters are determined at the time of benchmarking. And once we determine these benchmarks, we move on to a very important step, which is rules development, because this is a standards or a Bible, we call it. It's the rules document which will ensure that the rating remains robust and remains quite fair in all the scenarios. So this rules document is available on NABERS website as well, which can help you guide onto the NABERS schools tool in more detail as well. So we also conducted then pilot ratings for 60 schools, which helped us test this benchmark and also helped us develop and strengthen our standards, as I said. So all the standards and the benchmark itself was then made more robust through the learnings from this pilot ratings. It was a great phase to sort of test a benchmark and find out how it's stacking along different types of schools and then filling those gaps as we go. Finally, we trained assessors for this new tool, and they have all the skills to now conduct a school rating. So there are more than 75 assessors, maybe even more than 80 now. So in schools to help you get started with your school rating. I'll talk about how you can find an assessor if you're already thinking about how to get started with your rating. In parallel to everything, we also developed this fantastic online platform, which is called NABERS Perform. This online solution or online web solution, which we have, is a very easy and fast data entry platform, and which enables you to enter the data, share it with your stakeholders, or share it with your school members, and also calculate and lodge the ratings. And now that takes us today to where we are, formally releasing the tool for your uptake. So as Mon said, while running this more than a year-long process, we were not doing it in silo. We couldn't actually do anything at all without all your support and collaboration. We ran 6 technical working groups with the government education department representatives and about 3 advisory panels with all independent and Catholic systemic schools and peak bodies, and I would say several energy specific and education building specific experts as well. We also worked very closely with our expert benchmarking consultants, Daltaq, who helped us, sort of develop this holistic, very robust benchmark. So I would like to, can I get to my next slide where I would like to show you all the participants and would like to take a minute to thank each one of you who have helped us either with your time or expertise or data or participation in pilots. In fact, could be everything. So many thanks to everyone who has been part of this tool development and to my wider NABERS team who has in some way or the other been a part of this tool development as well. I'll dive a little bit further now into what the schools tool look like. So what schools do the tool apply to? So it applies to any type of school in Australia. So it will cover government schools, Catholic systemic schools, and independent schools. And then it will also cover students in different sort of age categories. So if there is an only early learning center or a school which even is called preschool in some states, can also be rated by this tool. An individual primary school, a secondary school, or a special needs school, or a combination of these can be all rated by this tool. And when I talk about eligibility, if you have at least one student, one full-time equivalent staff, and of course your 12 months of energy and water consumption data, which you can collate, you can go ahead and rate your school. How is tool delivered? Now, this is an interesting bit because there's two ways the school's tool is delivered. One of them is a portfolio style, where lots of schools can be rated together by an education department. The assessor for these ratings are representatives from our department who are trained by NABERS to deliver these ratings similar to our public hospitals tool. So this sits with the central education department for each state and territory. And then there's other one, which is a typical individual rating. So that can be conducted by an assessor who's accredited by for schools. So if you have gone through training and you are an accredited assessor for schools, of course, you can start rating. And if you are a stakeholder or a principal or a teacher on this call and would like to get started, you can always find an assessor, which I'll touch on in my little bit further in my presentation. Moving on, what type of ratings can a school get? The first one, obviously, energy. So this energy rating, in addition to star rating, will help you know your school's energy intensity. It'll also spit out figures like emission intensity for scope 1 and 2 emissions, plus scope 1 and 2, 3 emissions as well. So it gives you lots of that info, that energy rating. And then the water rating, which spits out the water rating for with and without recycled water. And it will also give you your water intensity per square meter as well. And then the third one is waste verification. We do not have a waste star rating tool at the moment for schools, but we do have a waste verification. So you can go understand your waste emissions or find out your waste intensity through this verification model. If you would like to know more, please contact NABERS team. Moving on, I'd like to show you how flexible the rating tool is and how it caters to different school types and configurations. So the first one is when you have multiple buildings in a school campus. So there could be a library, there could be a whole building, and there could be a primary school section. You could still have a full rating combining all of those. Then there could be a junior school, there could be a senior school. So we call them co-located schools. As long as they have shared utility meters, you can still rate these schools together. And then there could be schools a little bit far from each other because they are sister or brother schools, and they're still within 1 kilometer to each other. They can also be rated together. So quite a different types of configuration based on how schools exist. The school tool will cater to all of that. And now I'll talk a little bit about what sort of data you can go and collect or you would need. I wouldn't go too much into detail, but I would touch on some key items, which are the main sort of data inputs which you will need to conduct a rating. The very first one is gross floor area, which is very important because the bigger the school, the more the energy it'll consume. So you would want to know your gross floor area, which can be from your architectural plans or your cleanable floor areas. Then it's full-time equivalent students. Most schools would know their students or report them to ACARA, and you would have a split of early learning center, primary, secondary, and special needs students. So the tool will ask you the split as well. And then there's swimming pool. Whether you have a swimming pool on your school premises or not will affect your energy consumption as well. The last two, which is the remoteness area and the climate, will be automatically determined by the tool. The remoteness location for the school is determined whether they are major cities, whether the location of the school is in a regional, outer regional, remote, or very remote. And this is automatically determined from the ACARA website. I should quote that ACARA website. It's Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority, which sources its data from ABS survey. So you don't have to do nothing. Once you plug your postcode, the system will automatically kind of pick your remoteness area of the school. And same for climate. So which climate your school sits in will be determined automatically from your postcode of your school. And for water ratings, there's some additional sort of data inputs. The first one being site area. That's because, if it is a large school that's been irrigated, is using a lot of water. So you would want that site area, which you would grab from survey plans or deposited plans. And then also water usage for the whole population of the school, you would have to include the full-time equivalent staff as well. And for pool, in this case, you would need to know how big the pool is, whether it's an Olympic size pool or a small pool out there, because you would be using as much water as big the size of the pool is. So the benchmark will take care of all of that. Moving on to my next slide on coverage, I'm not going to go over all the details of what forms the energy coverage. As you can see, it's essentially all the energy supporting the school, its students, its activities, including air conditioning, lighting, or any other fuel uses on the site. Some of energy is excluded from these coverage, which are like non-school facilities and also boarding facilities and some externally leased retail stores on school campuses. So all of those can be excluded, and you can find all of that on the rules document, or your assessor will help you with all of that. So basically everything that is supporting the school, its students and activities is that school's energy consumption. And for water consumption, similar to that, it'll be all sorts of water usage, from watering lawns to toilets to drinking water to kitchen usage. It's all included in the coverage. And then there are again some exclusions like boarding facilities. Having said that, in case you had no sub-metering, you may end up including all the coverage, which may negatively impact your rating. So I suggest if you have boarding facilities, you should start thinking about sub-metering. And all of this can be found on rules. So moving on to my next slide, what do you get once you have completed your rating? You've gone through collecting data, calculating the rating, your assessor has helped you. And now what do you get? You get this rating certificate, which is valid for 12 months. You get a rating report, which will outline all the results with figures that can be used for your internal reporting or your internal calculations or setting targets, as Mon said. And if you decide to make your rating go public, it's your choice. It's completely optional. Your schools can be seen in the public listing of results on our website, and you could use that for promotional opportunities as well. And I'd like to note it again that it's possible that you may not have a great rating when you start your NABERS journey, and that's completely fine. You may decide to keep it private and eventually make it public over the time as you make improvements and have a better rating as you would like to show off it now. Okay, so it's admin enlargement fee. So the NABERS fee is a fee which is our admin fee, enlargement fee, and then there's a component called assessor fee that depends on many factors, like whether there's a big school or you're rating 2 schools or how complex it is. And in general, it would be a little bit higher for your first rating and would continue to get lower as you continue to rate every year. It'll really depend on the scope you agree with your assessor. But NABERS fee I can talk about. For NABERS fee, that's the price, which is $14.60 each for energy and water rating, but you get a discount if you're doing both of them together. So that's quite a lot of discount. And there's some offers at the moment for schools specifically because it's a new sector. So any new school which will get a rating. So if you haven't had a rating before, your school will get a 50% discount this year, which is a great offer. So talk to us if you would like to take that offer and go ahead. Okay, so how do you get started? Jump on our website, you'll see a number of tools there. First of one is what you would love to I'm sure you would like, is these free calculators out there. The Estimate Your Rating tool will help you estimate your school's rating with the data on a very, very high level scale. So it's not that your school might turn out the exact star rating when you do an actual rating with a very, very concrete data and bills, but you may be able to get some sort of a high level estimate, as it says in this rating calculator. So you may be able to plug the area, the students, and then the total consumption for 12 months and get what your school sort of is projecting like. Then there's reverse calculators. They help you sort of set targets. So it works backwards. Let's say you want your school to be 6-star leading, and you would set yourself as 6-star and then work backwards to see how much consumption do you have to reduce to achieve that sort of target. And there's prediction tools, which helps you predict your star rating with the change in the national emission factors, mainly because our grid is greening as we go. So our grid is now being sourcing renewable energy. So as we go, with our grid going green, it will predict your star rating changes from now to next few years. Then a very important one is find an assessor. So if you're already kind of thinking, I'll say jump onto that website and you'll already find a number of assessors who are upskilled to rate schools any day, and you can find them in your own area. You can even filter them according to your area and where you would like to find them. The other obviously very important thing is because this assessor is going to ask you for all the data. The first thing he or she is going to ask you is 12 months of electricity or gas or water bills. So perhaps a good time to start looking into your bills and start collecting that data. Okay, so now I've sort of touched on our, operational tool. I just want to now talk about what will happen if your school is actually very new, you are about to build it, or is just refurbished. You can still commit to a NABERS rating. So there is this great offering from NABERS, which is called NABERS Commitment Agreement. NABERS Commitment Agreement is a contract that allows the promotion of a specific NABERS rating for a new or a refurbished building before it's completed. So you target a star rating and you model a building, and there's lots of information in our handbook online, which can help you get started with modeling the building. Once you've done that, there's an independent design panel, and you can find those panel members on our website as well, who review your modeling. And once that's done, you can start sort of promoting your building star rating, what you projected at, even before completion. And then the next step is, once you are occupying the school and start operating, and you have reached the eligibility of, you're ready to do your proper operational rating, you can then promote your performance rating. With the commitment agreement tool, we've found that people who have committed or contracted with NABERS to a specific star rating, almost 98% of hit their target at the peak performance. So it's quite a great way to get started if you are on a stage where you are, thinking of building a school or are in construction stage. That's all from me today, and I'll pass on to you, Andy.
Yes, thanks for that, Suruchi. Just Q&A. So far, there's only one question here. How does the tool deal with on-site solar energy generation and the associated emissions reduction?
Sure. I'd say when you have got an on-site solar generation, you end up using less energy from grid. So you basically being an efficient school. So it should be depicted in your energy efficiency, and hence that solar, which is being offsetting your energy, which you would have end up using from grid, will bring your star rating, make your star rating better. And there's also an additional sort of indicator or so-called certificate spits out, which is called renewable energy indicator, where you can also see how much renewable energy you are using. So to encourage your use of renewable energy, that indicator is a great first step as well. So let's say your school has moved on to 100% renewable energy, you're going 100% solar, great. You can show off your students, your stakeholders, that you are completely renewable through this renewable energy indicator. So A, yes, you get a better rating, and B, you get this amazing renewable energy indicator to promote yourself.
Brilliant, thanks for that. And one more quick question. We've had a couple come through. One of the questions is, can you talk about government schools? How can we get state schools to participate in this program?
The government schools are already participating, not all, but the way the system has been set is because there are a number of schools where there is a central sort of a I would say, department looking after these schools. So at the moment, we have signed MOUs with Schools Infrastructure New South Wales and also with Victorian Education. So the thousands of schools from Schools Infrastructure New South Wales will be undergoing these portfolio ratings. The only difference is because it sits under that one point of contact and where all those upgrades, sort of decisions for upgrades would be made, it makes more sense to have this as a portfolio style rating. And hence we've developed it as a different style to an individual rating. And this also is a very efficient process to rate that thousands of schools. We are also trying to work with different other states and territories to bring them and participate in the program as well. But at the moment, we definitely have the two big states, New South Wales and Victoria, who have joined the program.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Suruchi. There are some other questions, but we are running short on time, and we'll reach out to the people who've asked those questions after this.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. So now moving on to the panel session of this webinar, I'd like to introduce the panel members we have online today. Firstly, we have John Munn, who is the Director of Corporate Services at Trinity College in Adelaide. And Trinity College is one of the first schools to get a NABERS rating. We've also got Dammika Weerakkody, a NABERS accredited assessor who's been doing ratings for over a decade and who worked on the Trinity College ratings. And last but not least, we have Gary Adsett, the General Manager of the Queensland Independent School Block Grant Authority, the body that distributes capital funds to independent schools in Queensland on behalf of the Queensland and federal governments. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I've got a couple of questions. My first one actually is to you, John. Trinity College was the first school after the pilot program to get rated. I just mentioned that. Could you tell us what motivated the school to get rated?
Yeah, look, thank you for having me today, Andrew. We're a very big independent school. We have 4,300 students, plus we have about 300 early learning centre students across 4 different sites. So we really do understand the impact we have on the environment, and over time we've implemented a significant number of environmental initiatives, particularly across the key areas of waste and water, energy and carbon. We believe we were the first South Australian school that measured its own carbon footprint. We've installed 1.3 megawatt of solar at a really significant cost. We've replaced all of our lighting with LED, and from a water perspective, we have a dam on site, and we also use bore water for our irrigation. So we've really done a lot, and this culminated in us engaging a consultant a couple of years ago. And we've recently finalised an environmental sustainability plan, which really is a roadmap for us moving forward. So we're already aware of the NABERS rating, and Phil and Dammika contacted us earlier in the year, and to be honest, we jumped at it. We've already had discussions internally about using the NABERS rating for our new building works. So as soon as we again heard about it, we were really interested to see how we benchmarked specifically against other schools. And I guess moving forward, we'll continue to make improvements. Phil and Dammika have already provided us great support and advice as to how we can achieve our goals.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. And you mentioned Dammika, so I noticed you haven't got your camera on, Dammika, so might want to turn it on. But the next question is for you. You've been an assessor for a little over 12 years now, and have conducted ratings for a wide variety of buildings. How did you find using the tool, and what did you find was different conducting a school rating versus, say, a rating for an office or a shopping centre?
First of all, I would like to thank for the NABERS team for giving us this opportunity to share our experience working with John and the team and completing the Trinity College NABERS ratings. The rating tool is almost similar to those we use for the offices or shopping centers, with a few additional pieces of information required, such as student enrollment, FTEs, staff FTEs, site area, and the swimming pool information. During the assessment, the challenges encountered included discrepancies between the student and staff numbers on the My School website and the data provided by the school. So this discrepancy arose because the Trinity campus especially shares resources between the multiple schools. We approached the NABERS team to request special permissions to use the school provided data, which is not the normal case, as the published data on my school website was not accurate. Another thing, during the site visit, we noted that the site area is significantly larger than that of a typical offices or a shopping center, including extensive ovals in the school. This made walking the site time consuming. In some cases, site staff kindly offered us the buggies to navigate the area, which I found to be a very positive experience. Additionally, the site team was notably more enthusiastic compared to those at the site or shopping center sites. They included long servicing staff members who will well equipped with the site operation. They knew where the water meters and the electricity meters and all the basically like, you know, the required information, the site gathering. Additionally, the site, what we can say, like with any of the other rating tool, a collaborative approach involving the assessor, NABERS technical team, and the site team is very essential for collecting data that meets the NABERS requirement. At Trinity, John and the team were incredibly helpful for us. We extend our thanks to entire Trinity College staff for their assistance in completing these ratings.
No worries. That's a lot of yeah, I can imagine a campus with, you know, quite sprawling grounds. It's a lot different from an office.
Yes.
My next question is to Gary. The Queensland Independent Schools Block Grant Authority is developing a toolkit to help schools to develop a sustainability framework that can advance their school sustainability goals. What would have been the drivers for this work, and, you know, what's the reaction from schools up in Queensland been like?
Thanks for that, Andrew. Well, I guess if we just step back from a strategic perspective, is that when we think about school buildings, they're the second biggest investment that a school is going to make in terms of the construction of those buildings, and then thinking about how much it costs to operate them and continue to maintain them so they continue to be fit for purpose. So we're very keen to, you know, to ensure that when you're thinking about that size of investment, that there is a really good return on that investment. And when you think about return or creating value, we would like to think about it in sort of three areas. One, which is social value, which is obtaining great educational outcomes for young people. The second is financial return. And so the greater the financial return, the more that you can put into that, attaining greater social outcomes. And the last one is about how you mitigate risk. So when we're thinking about something like a toolkit, evidence indicates that the more that a school leader can positively contribute to the design, construction, and then activation of a building, better the outcome from a value proposition. So the reason that we then dived into, I guess, this area of sustainability was for two reasons. One, when schools were making applications to us, we thought that the way that they submitted thinking in terms of sustainability could be better planned. It seemed to be a bit ad hoc. The other driver is that government is requiring us to do more. You know, so we're seeking to have targets, you know, towards 2050, and so we thought as an entity that we could be a bit of a champion in that area. In terms of the toolkit itself, we're still in the development of the toolkit, and the process of developing it is that we engaged Mott MacDonald, who are a worldwide engineering company who have impressed us with regards to their sustainability framework. So we've used that as a starting point. And then we invited 30 school leaders across Queensland to participate in 2 workshops to help us, in a sense, ensure that that sustainability framework that Mott MacDonald has developed is user-friendly in a school educational setting. And I guess we had our last workshop 1.5 weeks ago, and the feedback has been really good. And one of the people came back and said, this has exceeded all of my expectations. So I'm not sure where the expectations were, but at least we exceeded them. And probably some of the key take-homes that have come out of the workshops to date is, and it'd be interesting to see what John just needs to nod, but one of the things that has become very clear is that culture, creating a sustainability culture within your school is critically important. It's just because the executive leadership team says it's a good thing or the board says it's a good thing, you need to roll that all the way through your school community to ensure that you get good buy-in. So how do you create your culture? The second is that sustainability is far more holistic than just power, water, and waste. It can go a lot deeper than that, and that's where I guess the excitement is. And the last is that if you're going on a sustainability journey, is that the information that you can get from your peers is critically important. If you can learn from them, that can add so much more value in your journey as you go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. I think, yeah, there's a lot of themes there that I know there's quite a few assessors on the call here that they would have heard from the other industries. It's, it's a collaborative effort. It's about sharing the learnings. I might throw it to John for the next one. Actually, firstly, did you want to add anything to what Gary said since you mentioned you?
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Absolutely. I think the point about culture is an excellent point. And we understand we can do some really good things from a corporate or college-wide level around solar and battery and using less electricity and water, etc. But the biggest impact we can have is on the 4,000 plus kids we have, and them taking that home, and then that taken into their life, etc., etc. So we're very conscious of the culture of the whole college, but also how we embed it into our teaching and learning as well.
Awesome. And Trinity College has now been rated. I guess upfront, were there any surprises from the results of your rating? And based off the results of that rating, where do you think you'll go from here?
Look, there probably were. Our energy ratings were good, and they were where we thought they would be, but our water ratings probably weren't. And I mentioned before about how we felt like we'd been doing some really good work with water usage, and we have our own dam on site. We use bore water, we have subsurface irrigation, we use sensors and automation and all this stuff to minimise our water. But ultimately, we also have 11 full-sized footy ovals. And we're just really, really big. We have a lot of landscaping, a lot of lawn areas, and combined with a fairly hot climate and low rainfall, we do irrigate a lot. And so that ultimately, I believe, meant that our water rating was really, really low, and again, lower than what we thought it would be. And to be honest, we accept that, and we'll continue to focus on being more efficient with our water usage, but also we want to strive to make genuine improvement in our energy consumption. We want to minimise gas. The impact gas has on our carbon footprint is really profound and a lot more significant than any other factor, literally just gas. So we'll continue to investigate how we can reduce our energy usage and optimise solar and battery storage moving forward.
Well said. And on the theme of surprises, Dammika, whenever we release a new tool and assessors start doing ratings in a new sector, there's inevitably surprises when conducting a new rating. What's some key learnings from the rating you just did at Trinity College that you'll take to your next school rating that you can pass on to assessors?
Okay. I will talk about key learnings on a couple of points, using the Trinity College as an example. That might be interesting to you then. Point one is the teamwork. As with anything else, to get like a quality output, collaboration between the assessor, school staff, and the NABERS technical team is very crucial. For example, we initially thought we needed the sub-water meter to monitor the school's dam water collector when we were doing the Trinity College rating. Although the school calls it the dam water collector, it is an open area. The school collect all the rainwater, similar to like in a normal office building or a shopping center, like a rainwater storage tanks. So what we did actually, we approached the NABERS technical team, and we were able to use this dam water consumption as a part of the water efficiency improvement project, so that for the NABERS purposes, sub-meters were not required. So my second point is determining the school building GLAR was a bit of a area, like challenging area for us. Identifying the gross lettable area of the school was challenging because the area data was not readily available. So what we did actually, we requested school, like, what other information you are having on your system. So luckily they had the AutoCAD drawings, so we could use the AutoCAD drawings to measure the school building areas. So that was a really interesting point. So the point 3 is school area measurements. Like for the NABERS platform, you need the site area. According to NABERS rules, the priority number 1 is to use the near map, but we investigated like how much it's going to cost. We didn't have the near map software. So it was very costly and impractical for paying the subscription if you don't use it like, throughout the whole year. So we have given up that option. So we explored other options, and after consulting NABERS team, we opted to use the online tool, Plan SA software, so we could measure the area. So that was accepted by the NABERS team. The point 4, monitoring sub-meter readings. As with any other sub-meter system, this school also, like as John mentioned, they have like a huge number of solar systems in different schools with so many different inverters used to monitor these consumptions. So what we noticed, actually, some of the inverters were offline, so we could not get all the site consumption, although it is internally providing to as a energy efficiency project, not to have that much grid energy. But to get the data, some of the inverters were offline, we couldn't get that. So the limitation affected our ability to enhance the renewable energy indicator percentage on the NABERS certificate. So that may be something like, we have communicated to Trinity, and John is aware of that, and he is planning to get those data in for the next time when we were doing the rating. And regular, I think my summary is on this point. Regular sub-meter data monitoring is very important, as with any other rating in this one as well. So they are my 4 points.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dammika. And one more question to Gary before we open up to any questions. Gary, you're obviously sitting at the much, the bigger picture sort of thing here, because you're representing one of the peak bodies. Looking forward 5 to 10 years into the future, what do you see as the biggest, or one of the biggest, sustainability challenges facing schools?
Thanks for that, Andrew. And before I answer that question, I just wanted to say that we talked about a toolkit which we're developing. We'll be launching that at the beginning of next year, and it'll certainly be pointing towards, amongst other things, NABERS. So I just wanted to get that little plug in. In terms of challenges, I think there's probably 4 key things that will be, which are almost honest, but certainly will be honest for the next, in 5 or 10 years' time. The first one would be around, to use this word culture again, is that our community, in terms of its own expectations, parents and their children are already making decisions around enrolment based on what is the sustainability intentions that a school has. And I can only see that growing over time. So it's time now to start moving from a strategic perspective for schools to think about what is that sustainability strategy that they're going to have from now going into the future. And I think as part of that sustainability culture, it's, as I said before, it's then going, who's going to be the champions within that, and how do you help sustain their commitment as you go through, and how you look at succession planning in and around that as you champion your sustainability culture year in, year out. The second is from a legislative perspective. So as we're seeking to get to 2050, we're now starting to see that in our conversations with banks, they're now looking at how they're going to start funding, well, how they allocate their funding, and that funding is strategically being more and more pronounced towards those projects which contribute to a net zero position towards 2050. You know, so if your design of your building is not taking on a sustainability intent, your ability to be able to attract funds is going to go down. Similarly, if in your design you're not contemplating a temperature which is going to increase by two degrees or more going into the future, you might find that in 10 to 15 years' time, that building becomes uninsurable because your insurer has deemed it no longer inhabitable or fit for purpose for its designed use. So you now need to start thinking about what are some of these downstream things which are coming in from a legislative perspective from a design element, which really then leads into, as you think about design, how you start thinking about cost and how you bring that into these things into the incorporation of your design. Because when you're thinking about the delivery of building, often they don't come in at budget. And the first temptation as you go to value manage is to strip out some of these sustainability elements. So it's then saying how important are they? And the response to that is very, because of the things that I've already indicated. So it's then saying, okay, are those things helping to, you know, hopefully their input at the start of the project, although may be more costly, leads to a better benefit in terms of whole of life cycle cost. You know, so the challenge is to think about your building not at that point of how much it cost of delivery at that point of operation, but how you think about it over its complete life cycle. And I think the last thing is as things become you know, as warming and other things become more and more prevalent, rain increases or not, how do we respond to that from a master planning perspective? So our master planning approach will need to change and be challenged as we go through that process. And who knows, if your buildings aren't capable of accommodating greater, you know, temperature load on that building, that might change attendance patterns for students going forward. So there's some of the challenges that I see over the next 5 to 10 years.
Brilliant. Yeah, a lot of really big changes happening and stuff that yeah, everyone needs to be aware of coming down the horizon. We've got a couple of questions I've noticed through here, and I'm glad Suruchi and the rest of the team have been answering them in the background. One thing that's come up a couple of times is around the assessor fees. Now, I mean, the assessor fees themselves do vary between the different companies, whoever you engage. So we always say, you know, go get some quotes out there. But maybe, Dammika, can you kind of give some insights into, you know, the kind of things that impact on, you know, what you would end up charging for, you know, conducting a rating? Without obviously, we're not putting you on the spot asking for money. Just what are the elements that kind of get considered?
That is a harder question to ask. Depending on the area, like when we did our fee proposal for John, I think we looked at the area, but later on we realized actually the fees shouldn't be the factor depending on the area, because there are so many other things relevant. One example, in some of the schools, they must read electrical single line diagrams, and then you need to use your expertise to understand where the meters are, how the electrical reticulation happen, and things like that. So it is a harder question, I mean, in summary. But I think if I'm going to give any advice to any other assessors how to do it, and I think you need to know whether the school's having the area documentation, school area documentation. Otherwise, it takes time to measure the areas and things like that. That may be a different area, like you can charge them. So approximately, I'm not really sure whether I can disclose any
Look, how long
numbers.
is a piece of string, I guess. It's kind of like, it could be anywhere. I guess from your experience, as you mentioned before, it's like such a big area. Maybe you should be making sure you build in the cost of a buggy to go around. We've almost run out of time, so I just wanted to just ask the panel one last question, just a really quick one, hopefully in one sentence or less. Before we go, what's one key thing about building sustainability for schools that you think the audience online should take away from this session? And I might put you on the spot. I'll start it with you, Dammika, again.
Okay.
Sorry. What's one key takeaway for the audience?
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
I think, as I always say, it's like collaborative effort is the key for, like, the similar to anything else, like, you need to work as a team. Team here is the assessor, the site team, and the NABERS technical team can play a big role as well. Because when you really convert the practical things you see on a site to whatever the written documentation, it's not like an easy kind of a judgment. So without the team collaboration, I think we can't do a really good job. I think that is my key takeaway, like collaborative effort.
Well said. Well said. Gary?
Look, I think one takeaway, or probably two, start now, because I think it's important to start because of the reasons I gave before. The second is that use those around you. I think there's a wealth of knowledge from those who have started before you, who, in my experience, they're very willing to share the good and the bad. So you can leverage from those experiences to really act as a catalyst to get you going a little bit quicker as you go forward.
Brilliant. And John?
Yeah, look, the easy answer is to continue that theme of culture and teaching and learning. But from a practical perspective, I think some advice to other schools who are looking at really kicking off their journey, exactly like Gary mentioned, speak to other schools and speak to contacts and networks. A lot of schools are doing this. But even outside of that, there's so many external resources that are both really specific to schools or just more general, like the UN Sustainability Development Goals is fantastic. In South Australia, we have Green Adelaide and Sustainable Schools. We've partnered with a company called Solar Schools, which is based up in Queensland, and obviously NABERS yourself. There are a lot of really invested organisations that are there to help.
Amazing. Well said. Well, thank you again to all the panelists for taking the time to share their insights with us. And we're almost out of time, 2 minutes to go. But before we finish off this launch, I just had a couple of things that I wanted to mention to the audience. Firstly, if you've got any questions or you want more information, please don't hesitate to contact us. The email address is there. We definitely want to talk to you. Anything we can do to help, let us know. Secondly, we actually have another launch webinar happening next week on Wednesday, the 4th of September for the new retail tool. So, there's a link that's about to be posted in the chat for the registration page. If you're interested, it's a similar sort of format. Come along for the hour. This is a brand new tool. We're launching 2 at once. And yeah, it'll be another good webinar. Third, there's also a consultation being run by the Federal Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water on the possible expansion of the Commercial Building Disclosure Program. So that's the program that applies to the office sector. They're basically running a consultation looking at expanding that. And in the chat, there'll be another link there to their webpage if you're interested in contributing. And lastly, this webinar has been recorded, and we'll be posting the recording of this webinar on the NABERS YouTube channel in the coming days. So if you want to review anything from this, this session, or you want to pass it on to any of your colleagues, there'll be an opportunity to do that. And we will PDF and send through this slide deck. That was a question that came up really early. Yeah, and I wanted to thank all the attendees for joining us this afternoon, and I'm really looking forward to seeing all the school ratings come through. We definitely know there's a bunch already in the queue, so we're excited to see how that comes through. And yeah, thank you and good afternoon.